Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you for your patience on a cold and wintry afternoon in Delhi. Yep, folks like us who are coming in from Noida and all that, going to drop the children early in the morning. I'm very delighted to see this turnout, and I'm glad that you're all here for this very important subject. So I'm Upadhya. Like Vimi ji said, and thank you, Vimi, for the introductions. So the panel today will feature Mr. Pankaj Batra, Senior Advisor IRADe, Mr. Harsh Thacker, Director Emerging Technologies, Mr. Abhishek Ranjan, Partner Consulting at EY Parthenon, and Mr. Sunil Sharma. So thank you so much again for joining us. The format that we intend to follow to keep it more interactive and more engaged with you, and we would definitely hope to have your questions towards the end of the session, is that we'll request each speaker to speak for about 3 minutes and give the overarching views and inputs, and then we will have the moderated panel discussion. So starting with the big macro picture, we'd like to invite Mr. Pankaj Batra, Senior Advisor IRADe. Sir, please, the floor is yours. You're most welcome to speak there or here, whichever way you want, sir. There are mics there, but you're most welcome here, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's towards the end of the day, so you'll have a little bit of an issue staying alive. But I'll try to see that you get as much information as I can give you. So this is about solar plus storage. So when the Government of India came up with the target of initially 20,000 megawatts by 2022, that was under the solar mission. And later this was enhanced 5 times to 100,000 in 2014. 5 times, yeah, so that's quite a bit. The same year by 2022. And not only that, target of renewables also of 60,000 wind, and then the balance of biomass and small hydro, which is up to 25 megawatt. But these solar and wind were already there in a big way in certain states, in Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, and to a lesser extent that time in Gujarat, Maharashtra and all. So I was at that time Chief of Engineering in the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. All these states came up with telling us that how do we manage the intermittency of renewables? Because they are sometimes there, sometimes they're not there, sometimes it goes up, sometimes comes down. Our states are incurring a problem of balancing the grid because of the mismatch in generation and demand, because the generation keeps going up and down. So then in the CRC we thought that yes, it is going to be an issue of real proportions, because we are planning to come up in a big way with renewables in the future. So we thought we will put a mechanism where we share the risk of, because why should the states which have these resources of wind and solar be responsible for the intermittencies, because that's a target for the whole country, not for those states only. So we came up with a mechanism of renewable regulatory mechanism where we said that every solar farm or every wind farm has to forecast its generation and to the accuracy of plus minus 30% of the installed capacity at that time, which was reasonable. And the other portion which they cannot forecast, forecast reasonably, that has to be socialized by all the states, because it incurred charges such as deviations. If you don't stick to the schedule, you have to pay a penalty. So why should those states only pay a penalty? So some of the remaining portion would be socialized. So that's how that thing was put in the grid code, but many wind generators, at that time it was mainly wind, they filed a case saying that first of all, within the states, the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission does not have jurisdiction because it's within the states. But what was put in the grid code was because it has an effect on the grid at large. Therefore, it affects the other states also. So that was the logic, and but they filed a case, up till the case was decided, we went ahead with the mechanism, and it was also rewarded people for being more accurate, not only penalized for being less accurate. So all these wind farms, out of 7 wind farms, 6 wind farms actually made money, didn't lose money. So that turned their arguments on its head. And of course, the government was wanting more of renewables, so the minister requested these people to withdraw the case. So although they withdrew the case, but in its wisdom, the CRC decided that we will file these, we'll make this applicable only for interstate wind or solar generating stations. So that's what it stands presently. But I just put this to explain to you the necessity of storage. Storage is one which can store energy when there's excess and give back energy to the grid when there's less of renewable energy. So the worldwide storage is giving grid scale storage is gaining a lot of importance. I know many of the people when we didn't have reliable supply had inverters. Now inverters was sort of storage for the house. So whenever you didn't have electricity, that inverter took care of that. So now this is grid scale storage. You would have realized that reliability of electricity supply in the country has improved tremendously. You hardly have any outages, especially in cities, but now you have even 22 hours of supply in villages, and every household has got a connection. So it has come a long way, the power sector in India. So now what has been decided, that you also bid out for not only solar, which was being bid out by SECI. SECI is Solar Energy Corporation of India on behalf of the states. It's an aggregator of demand, and which then calls for bids for renewables, either wind or solar. Now, as a policy, it is realized that it's better to have renewable plus storage, and that's how this session of solar plus storage. Solar, actually, it's renewable plus storage, but there's more of solar in predominance of solar as compared to wind. So now it's mainly solar plus storage. I mean the topic here. Although in future we expect more of wind also to come. Now solar is one which will never be there after 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. So you're sure at least of about 10 hours of solar, but the other, which is 14 hours, it will not be there. So you're certain to that extent. Wind, you're not certain of that also, because the wind could come in the day or the night or even after peak hours. But there is fortunately a good thing that most of the solar, when there's maximum solar, there's minimum wind. So the wind comes more before sun rises and again after sun sets. So it's self-balancing. So that's why we also have bids for hybrid wind and solar, and storage, of course. Now in the solar plus storage, you've had this time about 9,000 megawatts, which is planned for 2023, and 8 gigawatts has already been was bid out 2023, and the tariff, which was arrived at, it's cheaper than coal now. So renewable plus storage, which the latest bids which came out was the tariff which was discovered by SJV, and the bids called by SJV is Satluj Jal something Nigam. So there it was 4 rupees 38 paisa as a levelized tariff. Now when you say levelized, it means it averages over 25 years but at net present value. So if that's the case, whereas a new coal-based station, if you put it up in a pit head means where the coal mine is, that is still going to be more than that, 4 rupees 50 paisa or more. So already it's become viable to have solar plus storage. Now, what's the type of storage? Now, if the sun is there for 10 hours and it's not there for 14 hours, you'll have to have long duration storage. So most of the contracts which are won in these bids are bids which are from pumped storage, pumped hydro storage, not with batteries, because batteries at 14 hours of storage becomes very expensive and you would not be able to compete. So that's how most of the bids which were won by Acme and Juniper and Tata's, that was 4 rupees 38 paisa, which was declared in, I think, November of last 23. So that's how we've come to this present position of solar plus storage. I don't think I'll take more time. I think maybe have taken more time than what was given to me. Maybe we'll have more discussions, Raghav. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Batra, for showing and explaining from your immense experience with government. You were the Central Electricity Authority earlier, and you worked in multiple positions across government. I'd like to invite Mr. Abhishek Ranjan, Partner Consulting, Energy Transition and Decarbonization at EY Parthenon, to make your remarks. Abhishek, like all of us, you and I, we go back more than a decade, along with Mr. Batra. So please share with us, what is it? So prior to this, you were at BSES, and it's good to have some exposure that we have, two speakers who have worked and currently working at BSES, because nothing comes better than the word from a utilities mouth, right? So please, Abhishek, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Raghav, and thanks a lot to organizers. So pondering on the topic itself, let's come back straight to the topic. Now, in the last decade or so, we have seen a lot of proliferation of renewable energy, and that too utility side, utility scale, as well as the, say, distributed scale, DERs as we know them. And there are multi-reasons for the same. One of them is climate change that we know. Then post that, the government mandates have come in. You know about the RPO targets, which have been revised recently also in the Energy Conservation Act of India, for example. Now, given the intermittency and variability in the renewable energy, therefore the need for flexibility resources, one of them is storage. Coming back to my old Discom days, we talk about integrating renewable energy not only at the distributed feeder level, where rooftop solar is the primary one. I mean, I'm talking about 5-6 years ago, but now more so about the electric vehicle charging as well. Also from the utility scale, because the long-term PPAs are there with the Discoms, which are attributed to the variable renewable energy mostly. Then came, say for example, hybrid renewable energy, wind plus solar, and then came RTC in whatever format we call them. So for example, annual CUF commitment or a monthly CUF commitment. Then came another flavor called peak tariff, so peak power. So what is peak power? So you have variable renewable energy as per the forces of nature throughout the day, except for those 4 or 5 peak hours of the choice of the utility, wherein they would not like to have any deviation. Okay, so these are different flavors. And very recently, last year in June, the government came out with a guideline on firm and dispatchable renewable energy guidelines, which is a load following guideline. So the Discom load profile, as we know, varies across time blocks and across the season in a given year. So in this construct, what happens is they come out with their profile, and that has to be made. The RE design has to be there. So long story short, what I'm trying to say over here is, A, the grid parity of renewable has been established. So solar has come down from, say, once upon a time 11 rupees a unit to now standalone solar is about 2.5 rupees per unit. We have seen solar drop to even 2 rupees a unit in Rajasthan and Gujarat. Wind is hovering around, say, for around 3 to 350 rupees, 3.5 rupees per unit. Hybrid is around, say, 3.75. Peak power tender, which was the first one from SECI, weighted average was around, say, 4 rupees then. RTC first one was around, say, 2 rupees 95, say, first year. LCOE was about 3.56. Very recently now, the FDREs that we are talking about, which is load following, we expect maybe the tariff would be below 5 rupees, and which is very much comparable with the numbers. Like, for example, you talk about coal, where the variable cost or the variable charges are on an escalation mode, right? So we did some maths, and plain and simple, even say, I'm not talking about the peated coal, But a load-centered coal, for example, in Punjab or Delhi and many such regions, the variable cost today is around say 4 rupees or 5 rupees. One of the reason is mandate for mixing and blending imported coal as well. And then you're talking about 5 rupees total cost of a renewable energy which is load following, which a degree of firmness megawatt blockwise, maybe hourly blockwise or a daily basis or a monthly basis, different flavors are there. And you have price certainty. To end and pause here, Raghvendra, we have come down a long way from mandate-driven RE penetration to a commercial-driven RE penetration, right? So it makes commercial sense to go RE. And it's not only in utility. Beyond BSES, I was in a renewable IPP also. I saw C&I customers as well, the big commercial industrial customers. So they are also seeing a sense in going for renewable. So more on this maybe in the next round. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. So this is like a tour de force. We are, I think we've traveled about 25 odd years of the power sector, and we've come to this particular point where we are now looking at, like Abhishek said, commercial RE penetration. We've achieved grid parity and all of that. So our next speaker would be, to take this forward, would be Mr. Harsh Thacker, Director, Emerging Technologies. And I was discussing with Harsh when I just met him. So again, Harsh's organization and us and all of us, I think we go back again more than a decade. So Harsh, please let us know, what are these exciting new technologies that we are talking about from more of a layman's perspective as well. How can we, in addition to, having grid parity for power, solar plus storage and solar plus wind plus storage, really drive this to ensure that we can outcompete coal to a certain extent and then, start to phase out coal fleets later on.
Thank you, Raghvendra sir. This is Harsh Thacker. Thank you all for joining us. I'm also a ex-BSES, by the way. Yeah, so it makes three of us. It's very interesting, the way we are looking at the role of storage in this world. And as Abhishek ji rightly said, that it's now becoming more from mandate-driven to economics-driven, at least for renewable. Can it be also not mandate-driven and economics-driven for storage plus solar? And that's where Sir said, like, if 4.38 kind of rate can be achieved for a blended solar plus storage, which is possible if you are storing 20% of energy in storage. So then I think it's commercially viable to get a firm dispatch for a few hours. I would get to firm dispatch, I think 10 days later, but I think the crux is like what is being said, like, is it possible to replace coal with solar plus storage? So at least we have done different production cost modeling studies in different states of India, in Tamil Nadu, in Rajasthan, and even CA has done a lot of studies, production cost modeling studies across different interstate networks of India. And it has been seen that it is very, I think, very much possible to hit a 30-40% renewable penetration with storage, which can reduce the cost of supply. Now, this is possible, and this is also now required because the new coal plants, the supercritical coal plants, would have cost of power, over 5.5 rupees, 6 rupees in the years to come by. And even the financing of the new coal plants have become very difficult. So in that scenario, I mean, just leave aside the green angle. You are having a technology, which is difficult to get financed. You are having, solar and wind, which is largely available in many parts of the country. If you are able to bring balancing reserves, balancing resources in the grid, it basically helps you to just use the existing coal facility at higher PLF, more as a flat resource. So it also brings down the SOx and NOx emissions from these plants. So I think there is a great benefit if you are looking to reach almost like 30, 40%, even 50% renewable penetration. I think after that, the economics start changing, and then we, at least in today's point, we are seeing the U curve again, where the unit price is going up for renewable plus storage, and even the entire cost supply. And I think that's where the long duration storage comes in, because if you are looking to hit over 40% renewable, 50% renewable, that's when I think you would need technologies which can deliver more than 8 hours, 12 hours power supply. Pumped hydro is one of them. And pumped hydro, I think wherever is possible, we will be doing that. After that, I think there are technologies like thermal storage. There are technologies which are more like mechanical storage. One of them is most talked about is gravitational storage, where you are able kind of pulling a train upwards and kind of bringing it down and kind of converting the head energy into kinetic energy. So that's kind of technologies are possible. We don't know like how much and in what stage they would get commercialized, but I think all these technologies would get commercialized when market is more ready. And I think the market becomes more ready in geographies like California, Southern Australia around 2030. So I think for India, it will be still, I would say 5 years later, when we would be seeing more and more deployment of those kind of technologies. So yeah, that's my point of view here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you for keeping it short and crisp. We'll now go over to Mr. Sunil Sharma, General Manager, BSES Yamuna Power Limited. So ladies and gentlemen, 3 BSES personnel over here. So they've been supplying power to Delhi, and you can see what a wonderful power market we are today. I remember 20 years back when we were in South Extension, the kind of power cuts we used to have before it was privatized. So gentlemen, thank you for doing your job excellently well. Now this new thing that we are talking about is that we will now be consuming more units of green energy, and we have been, over the past few years. I know BSES and Tata Power, both of whom supply power to Delhi, have been buying more and more green and renewable energy. Can you tell us something more, Sunil, on what the Discom is doing right now to incentivize, to promote stored plus renewable power?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm so happy that you invited BSES to this forum. So BSES has already been promoting a lot of renewable energy, initiatives and how customers can really adopt it. As Abhishek sir has already briefed you about, there's a lot of DER penetration which is already going on. And we are already engaged with customers at so many levels. A lot of schemes we are driving, like MNRE Phase 2 program is there. And also we have a close connect with government and coming out with some subsidies and incentivizations. So that thing is already going on, and we already have 38 megawatts of installed distributed capacity. And our sister concern BRPL is having around 120 megawatts. So a lot of RE penetration is already there. And it's very heartening to see these rates which have come down, and in terms of our long-term PPA mix, we are already operating at around 20% of RE mix. That is already there in terms of energy terms. In terms of capacity, I think we are close to 25 or 26 or 28%. That is already there. So Discoms in Delhi are very much poised to absorb and bring this green energy to our customers. Now coming to the storage, the prices which have come down, and going forward, I think we are going to have much more RTC that is going to come. As of now, tie-ups have pure solar, long-term solar we have got, but RTC tie-ups are being done, and close to 200, 300 megawatts is going to come up in next couple of years. So promotions, we are deploying physical pilots, we are doing a lot of awareness activities. We have tried energy storage installations at behind the meter, as well as at grid level also. Our sister concern is already gone ahead with 10 megawatt hour of energy storage. So a lot of activities are happening, and to maintain this variability in view of coming EV load and distributed RE. So we have a very positive view of energy storage both at behind the meter and at the large generation centers. So it's very heartening to see the rates which have come down, and we look forward to absorbing more green energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil. coming back to the big picture, Mr. Batra sir, you'll recollect, we were part of this committee under the then Minister of Power, Jyotiraditya Scindia, in I think 2013. So that was all about the grid. India needed to make the grid of tomorrow and strengthen it, and we did it in a wonderful way. So all kudos to the government and to all the private sector players who worked since then. Now the big thing that we've been talking about for the last 2-3 years is this solar and renewable plus storage, right? So if we look at the role of, say, for example, we have gone through an overview of the supply side of it, but on the demand side of it, like you and I had discussed earlier, if we are looking at a lot of variable demand, so you have these process industries, you have certain industries that draw a huge amount of power and then don't draw power for bits of time. The load profile, you have variable load profiles, like you would call it technically. How do we ensure that consumers like us, apartment owners, people who have houses in the city, and industries as well, how do we incentivize our own consumption profiles to match the grid in such a way that we have better power, more renewable energy, and less intermittency of power and more stable grids?
Yes, I spoke about balancing of the intermittency through the supply side, which is storage. We didn't have anything, I didn't say anything about the demand side. But if you have to balance load and generation at each point of time. So if there's a mismatch, there's greater instability due to frequency instability, and the grid can go down. So as well as voltage instability, which can again cause grid instability. Now demand is very important, which we have not explored so far. Instead of increasing generation or using the generation from storage when the renewable generation goes down, we can also reduce the demand, because you have to balance generation and demand at each point of time. So either you increase generation or you reduce demand. But probably most people would not have heard about it, or maybe some would have, about this is called demand response. The only demand response which was being done was load shedding, which was not really with the concurrence of the consumer. So load shedding is also a method of demand, but it's not demand response by choice, it's by force. Now the new system gives a choice to the consumer to be able to reduce demand and get paid for it. That's called demand response. So instead of paying storage, you pay the consumer for reducing the demand. So this is something which has started in European countries, but also not taken off too much. This is also started in US, but not taken off too much. But I would like our country to take the lead in this, because we've got a big target of intermittent renewables. We started this as a pilot project long back in Mumbai, where the Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission, along with the CRC, took out a scheme where they did it not through automatic means, but through it's called an aggregator. So there was a customized energy solution from which Harsh is. So their company in Mumbai took out that was contract or assignment was given to them by the Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission, where they said, you tell the consumers in advance that you require to reduce the demand for 2 hours or for 1 hour, but that's pre-decided. So the reason at that time in Mumbai was that there was a huge shortage of electricity. That was in the year 2010-11. There was a shortage especially during peak time, and Maharashtra had to buy power from captive power plants at 7 rupees per unit there, whereas the average price was around 3 rupees. So there's a big difference. So if Maharashtra distribution utility avoided buying that peak time power, which is about 3 hours, then it basically could be either you buy the generation or you request consumers to reduce demand. So this was an aggregator model where the regulatory commission approved that you can collect consumers who are willing to reduce their demand to the extent required, and they'll pay the consumers for it. So the difference between, the average was 350 and 7. So there was a difference of 3 rupees 50 paisa per unit. So the scheme which was done was that the aggregator was asked to collect customers and you pay them. The Maharashtra Discom will pay the balance, the difference between the peak power and the normal power, which was around 350, and the aggregator could pay the consumers. So just for your information, Mumbai Airport was also a consumer which took part in this. So in fact, when we visited them, they showed us they used to get a check of part of that money was given to the airport. So 2 rupees 50 or 15 paisa, something like that, was given to them to reduce the demand. And how would anybody reduce demand? So there are actually, just have to use your brains. The airport, what it did was, it has to keep the temperature between 22 and 24 in the airport, the AC temperature. So what they did was, they would, suppose they were asked to reduce demand from 5 to 7 p.m. in the evening. They would chill, they had chillers, each was 1.5 megawatt. So they used to chill it to 22 degrees just before the demand response, which is at 5. And then they would shut off one chiller. And the temperature would gradually increase from 22 to 24. But no consumer felt anything, because in any case the temperature was supposed to be between 22 and 24. And in the bargain they got paid at the rate of 2 rupees 15 paisa that they did not use. So this sort of thing can be done for residential consumers like you and me also, except that I mean, aggregating, those who are big consumers, aggregating small consumers is going to be a little difficult. So there is a thing where we have smart meters in many houses. Now these are things which can remotely be made off or on the meter. So this meter can be configured so that whenever there's a need for reduction of demand, you know, these meters will automatically shut off some load. And one of the methods could be that a consumer may say that I don't want the electricity to be totally cut off. So you could take two connections. One is reliable tariff connection, reliable supply for which you paid a higher tariff, and the other is not so reliable tariff where you paid lower. So it could be that in reliable tariff he would pay a higher tariff for maybe 99% reliability. For another one he would pay a lesser tariff, maybe 70% of the tariff for 70% reliability. So that other 30% for which is not reliable, that would be at the hands of the load dispatcher or the person who controls the grid to shut off that sum. But he's paying lower for it. So same thing happens for many of us who have inverters. Inverters were used to cater only to the essential supply, which is lights and fans, when we didn't have enough supply. Whereas the non-essential loads, which could be storage water heater or ACs, some would consider it essential, but some people can actually, you know, from 24 degrees people can make it 26, so it doesn't become so unpleasant. But you reduce the power supply. So 24 to 26 or 27 or 28, that's fine. These are some methods, but everybody could think of some methods. You could have a washing machine, automatic washing machine, which will cut off when there's less power available in the grid and switch on by itself when there's excess power. So that's called demand response. Now this is there, it's legislated in the European Union that this has to be treated as par with power supply devices like generation as well as storage. But it has been implemented to some extent in some countries, not all, but there's a huge potential. And especially when our country is covered by smart meters, you know, which is the aim, that every consumer would have a smart meter, there's a huge potential. In fact, at least half of your needs from storage can be met from demand response. That is one of the conclusions of the report which was given by Central Electricity Authority, where I was, to the ministry. And this is, we've got, I mean, why should India not take the lead in this? Because we've got smart meters which will come up in every consumer. You have got such a huge potential. The other method, of course, is where you interconnect. I said that different states had a huge amount of renewable energy, so they were suffering. Why don't we balance this over the whole country, where you have hydro resources in Batra which can balance this, or other storage projects. Similarly, when we increase the balancing area, it self-balances to one of the reasons is it self-balances. When you have high wind generation in Rajasthan, you may not have high generation in Tamil Nadu. So it self-balances to some extent. And it's also self-balances because of the diversity in demand between the states.
Absolutely, sir. And an integrated grid helps. One
Right.
country, one grid. That's the huge improvement that we've had in the past few years.
Yeah, so just extending that, we are also trying to connect other countries of South Asia, which means Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Bhutan and Nepal have got a huge hydro resource which can help in balancing this. And this is the first step towards one sun, one world, one grid, which you may have heard of the Prime Minister saying, where you interconnect the whole world. So if you interconnect the whole world, you may not need any storage at all. So that's one of them. Thank you.
Great. Coming on to you, Abhishek ji, we understand that from the technology's perspective, you need power in short bursts in milliseconds. So you have, for example, ultra high capacitors, ultra capacitors. Then you have the battery stored power. Then you have the pump storage and all of that. And then the long duration, much longer duration energy storage that we just discussed. So if we look at the whole sector to optimize it is sector coupling, which means green hydrogen based production. Can you couple it with renewable energy and RTC power, or in an FDRE and firm and dispatchable RE profile, to make sure that you can actually balance all of this using this huge new emerging thing that green hydrogen that is being talked about?
Yeah, so very nice point, Raghvendra. So we are talking about flexibility. Now, sector coupling is one source of flexibility, and flexibility is very, very important to integrate renewable energy into the conventional grid. Now, we talked about, Sir talked about balancing area enhancement. For example, we are talking about South Asian grid. So, BBIN nations, for example, Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka as well. So, in BBIN nations, we are already connected through 4.5 gigawatt kind of transmission links already. And all the governments in this sector, they are working on increasing this tenfold by 2035, 2040 kind of scenario. As you know, they have already allowed the hydro projects in Bhutan and Nepal to trade on the Indian Energy Exchange, right? So power exchanges. So those things are happening. And now we have to see that they are not going to participate in the energy market, but also the ancillary services market, which is the we call it ASDAM, Ancillary Services Day-Ahead Market. So while that is one, the point that you brought out is sector coupling. Sector coupling is also very, very efficient in the sense that today we have National Green Hydrogen Mission in our country, and we have set for some quantitative targets and some monetary targets for green hydrogen. Say by 2030, X dollars per kg kind of targets we have set in. Now, as we know that the production of the green hydrogen, the major cost is RE input, and then comes electrolyzer cost, and then the balance of supply. So it's very, very important to see that the input cost of the renewable energy to the electrolyzers is at a very, very low cost. Now, one side of the story is that you have maintain a non-flexible electrolyzer which is giving an output at a very firm rate, So megawatt output of an electrolyzer is 24/7, 365 constant. It doesn't flex. But having said that, if you kind of design RE for that kind of inflexible electrolyzers, and that is why we are seeing today, I mean, you're talking about $5 to $7 per kg of the green hydrogen rate today, because we are talking about infirm, inflexible electrolyzer. Now, there is a way out when there is a technology where it says that it can flex, just like a thermal unit, it can flex between the maximum output to the minimum technical limit. And there is a ramping rate up and down. Similarly, electrolyzer units can also flex. There are technologies available. Now, if you are able to integrate such electrolyzers with the renewable energy constructs, you talked about FDRE for example, it becomes another source of flexibility. When you model it, you find out that the overall input cost of the energy, be it for electricity use, be it for hydrogen production use, falls down a bit. And then your output for hydrogen, and you will wonder like, okay, if you flex the electrolyzer, the output of hydrogen also changes. So there is a study where it was done that, okay, you also have some kind of hydrogen storage in place, which is acting as a buffer. For example, if you want to produce green ammonia, which needs a very constant inflow of hydrogen, you would need these flexible electrolyzers plus some bit of hydrogen storage for backing up. When you do such kind of sector coupling, you are creating a multi-stakeholder environment where you do not plan for green hydrogen in isolation of electricity usage of renewable energy. So today we are saying 500 gigawatt renewable energy by 2030, non-fossil basically, out of which about 50 gigawatt is hydro. So 450 gigawatt of solar and wind by 2030, that it is for purely conventional demand. For green hydrogen, we are talking about another 125 gigawatt of green energy or renewable energy. So can we study it in an integrated fashion and find out whether from the existing 500 gigawatt also we can source some so-called waste power for the energy electricity PPA use for production of green hydrogen? You would need such kind of studies, and I think this is going to bring in a lot of synergies and I would say a commercial sense in integrating renewable energy.
Fantastic, Abhishek, because so now we are talking about sector coupling. My next question to our speaker from CES would be, so on the US-India corridor, so that's where the US-India Business Council, of which I am part, where we operate, we represent US and Indian industry, and we've been doing so for the last 50 years. One of our members, Black & Veatch, is setting up the world's largest hydrogen storage project, where they're going to take surplus electricity from the grid in Ohio and turn it into hydrogen, exactly as Abhishek said. So I think that could be one of the ways forward. What would be the other ways forward that you can, that we can learn from best practices across the world, including from the US as well as from India, on how to utilize surplus energy and convert it into something else that's useful and can be used for storage also?
So I think kind of hydrogen as a storage, we still feel that it's kind of a costlier option, although a lot of demonstrations have been done. But generating electricity just for 4 hours or even 8 hours, 12 hours is not viable. So I absolutely agree with what Abhishek is saying, that you need to have almost to run hydrogen like a base load generator, and that's where it brings a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, if there is excess energy, you can store it in form of hydrogen, and if that is used in industries, I think that makes a lot of sense. So there has to be that kind of a thought process where the industries which are using hydrogen, can be provided some cheap tariff, even in off-peak hours when you think it's anyways getting wasted. So I think those kind of models can be tried here. We have often seen, in grids where the cost of T&D is higher than the generation itself. You often see negative tariff happening, So it used to happen mostly in the night time before, but I think with solar coming in, it has started happening in the daytime also now. So I think those are the kind of signs which are given to us that, okay, these kind of are the times, upcoming times where these are the possibilities which would be happening. And again, we also talk about V2X concept where vehicles and grid would be integrated. There is a startup in Delhi, I think they are working on BSES network and trying to demonstrate that the swappable batteries can be discharged into the grid. It can make sense in a place where they are allowed to serve in the market, energy markets. And if energy markets are actually having true economics figures, then it makes sense. I think today still we are not seeing the true economic figures in the energy markets. So I think that's where the challenge is, that many of these interventions, smart interventions, are not coming online or are not becoming commercially viable. But otherwise, I think in US we are seeing a lot of benefits from this V2G kind of interventions, and I think it can be a great way to balance and use those batteries which are already connected to grid, and if they can provide a higher cost of energy than driving the vehicle itself. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you can be selling power back into the grid as a consumer, even while you're operating an electric vehicle, right? I think that's fantastic. Makes EVs much more affordable for all of us. My question to Mr. Sunil Sharma would be, BSES, I recollect that keeping consumer as the, consumer's king or consumer's queen, going out of your way and servicing them not just as a utility, but making sure that there is a consumer focus. We see that we now have a whole lot of incentives for solar rooftops. So it's not just industry that's, or offices that are putting solar rooftops or institutional, educational institutions. It could be if you have a lot of space on your terrace, you and I can also put it up. So what is the promotional activities or the incentives, or how are you promoting it in your catchment area, in your license area?
Yeah, so multidimensional activities we are carrying out. One is, I'll start from the mandated things that are there. So as you know, Discoms are the nodal entities for implementation of MNRE Phase 2 program, where we have to channelize capital subsidy to customers for residential category. So in case a customer wants to install solar rooftop, so we are the ones who are going to approve the installation, and then the subsidy goes to the respective customer's account. So that is one of the key enabling activities that we're doing. And one key part of it was, like we have done twice in the past, we have empaneled quality vendors after a thorough selection criteria. So we have empaneled vendors who will go and install these installations based on set criteria and specifications by MNRE. So this is one. Another mandated thing that Discom is enabling is disbursement of generation-based incentives to customers. So that is mandated or channelized through Delhi government. So it goes to customers' billing account. So 2 rupees per unit is the incentive amount. So that is a key thing which makes small solar projects viable for customers. So this is coming from 2016 Delhi solar power policy. And now the revised policy is going to come up, so that is likely to continue. So these are the mandated things. Under MNRE Phase 2 program, we have to do a lot of awareness activities also, and time to time we have to, share a lot of developments to customers in terms of what sort of financing schemes are there, what sort of, technologies are available, and where customers should go and what sort of installations they should have. So we have devised dedicated portals. We have detailed, websites which detail all the awareness things and what sort of systems they should be having. People can design their systems and calculate their savings. So a lot of things are being done through online mode, and a lot of SMSs are being sent. And social media, there's a heavy social media presence. Whenever we do a pilot which, supports RE or any enabling activity which is in direction to renewable energy, so we give it a due, social media presence so that people are aware of it. And of course, solar awareness is a regular part of
Absolutely. So
campaigns.
Sunil, tell me something very interesting. So if I have a house and a huge rooftop, I can install solar rooftop over there. Or if I have an office, I can install solar rooftop over there. Then do I need to store that into a battery and feed it as a, in a certain demand, in a certain supply trajectory, or it's freely loadable onto your grid?
Yeah, so we have net metering regulations, so which allows customers to bank their energy and really get the maximum benefit out of it. In case you go for a small battery, so there are efficiency issues, 12 to 15% you lose out of it, and of course at a small scale batteries are not so. So to mitigate that, these regulations which are very customer favoring, so you get a benefit out of the real your billing rate. So that is very good for customers. And in the year end, if a customer has got a surplus generation, you get, the customer gets a benefit at the rate of average power purchase price. So customer is able to easily bank it and utilize maximum. So the higher your average billing rate is, the more benefits you're going to draw from this net metering arrangement. Now the further extension of this is virtual net metering and group net metering. So under group net metering, in case a customer has got various installations, so if you have a project at one location, you can distribute that generated energy to all your installations. Under virtual net metering, in case you don't have a space, so you identify a space and you some set of customers can come together and jointly own a plant and get the generation distributed to your individual electricity bills. So these arrangements are really helping our customers in getting the maximum benefit and of course bringing a viability to the small solar rooftop space.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the rest of India should be following that model. I'd also heard that I think BSES had tried out P2P, transactions and how was the experience of that? That's peer-to-peer transactions, small amounts of renewable energy trading that you can do.
Yes, so this was a DST funded project, so where we wanted to showcase whether it is technically feasible or not. So as a physical demonstration pilot, we had installed microgrids at one of 4 of our offices. So where we had a solar rooftop along with grid interactive battery through a hybrid inverter. So we utilized demand response functionalities also. So under this pilot, there was a platform where customers could submit their bids, and accordingly people can have a handshake and transfer the energy. So on a pilot basis between office to office, it was tried out and it was quite successful. This thing originated from regulations which came out. The success of this was recognized by UP regulatory commission. So now I think we have much more enabling things that are going to come up. And the mention of P2P power trading has been there in upcoming draft Delhi solar policy. That is the new policy that is going to come up. So these things are going to be enabled and customers would be more empowered in case you have surplus generation capacity available. So people can really match up their supply demand aspects and really trade that excess energy.
Thank you. Thank you. That sounds great, Sunil. So we'd like to catch up on time, and to make up for time, what we'll do is very quickly we'll request all our speakers, starting from Mr. Batra. So what are the 1 or 2 top things that are exciting you, that catching your attention? How do you see the market develop right now in the next 5 to 10 years, where we can have wind, solar, renewables, coupled with other markets, that entire space? How do you think it will play out, and what should we as a country do to incentivize all of that?
Yeah, so the 2 things that excite me, one is the demand response, as I mentioned, coming in a big way in the country. And second is interconnections, which are taking place in South Asia and between South Asia and Southeast Asia, and actually towards from Middle East also, Middle East right up to Africa. So these interconnections span about half the globe. The other half also we should cover. So that's something which I think is not only our Prime Minister's vision, but also there's a Green Grid initiative where the Prime Minister of India and Prime Minister of UK are trying to supplement this effort. Thanks.
Abhishek, your 2 points.
Yeah, so we are talking about energy transition, right? So electricity is a form of energy. And to my mind, so for example, in our country, the electricity share in the energy basket is about 18 to 20%. 2 things are going to happen. A, the electricity share in energy is going to increase. So probably maybe 30-35% by say 2035 or something. And even further, and when we go towards 2070 net zero or even before that. And second, we are going to have a lot of sector coupling. So it's not in isolation. So you talk about say green hydrogen powered electricity turbines, basically gas turbines, basically, which is producing electricity. Okay, so those experiments are also happening right now in say New York. So Mitsubishi G, so those people are doing that. So I see that we will have natural gas slowly yielding to the green hydrogen. Blending will happen initially, and then totally green hydrogen 100%. So those 2 things I see a lot going to happen in this decade itself.
Good point, Abhishek. So one of our members, GE Vernova, they've gotten these engines in India which BHEL will be manufacturing under license, where you can use natural gas, methanol, you can use hydrogen, hydrogen as well. So you have this whole variety of fuels that you can use in the same engine by making small adjustments here and there. So is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. So it will be multi-fuel kind of thing, and it's not only energy as a separate vertical. So for example, you are talking about electrification of the mobility. So far the mobility has been dependent upon oil, which is a form of energy. So now we see a fungibility of energy between electricity and non-electricity sources. So that coupling is going to be strengthened not only by technology advancement but also by commercial sense. So that's what I'm looking to: green methanol, green ammonia, green hydrogen, electricity. These are all fungible commodities now going to be. So for example, biomethanol, for example, bioenergies, biofuels. So all these things, and then for example, biogas, cooking, electricity based cooking, replacing, say for example, piped natural gas or maybe LPG basically. So you would see a lot of sector coupling interplay, and not only in transportation sector but also so-called hard to abate sector. Electricity as a whole, as a commodity, maybe in residential area or industrial area, commercial area. And especially the role to play would be because the carbon emission from the perspective, you see the role of coal is very, very prevalent. If you talk about our country, coal and oil are the two primary source of energy. So more than say 80%. So coal, 90% of the coal is being utilized by electricity production, and the balance may be in coke or say for example for steel production. So it becomes very important to interchange the sources of energy, fossil-based energy, with electricity which is produced by green sources. So I'm attributing to the same thing that you are saying.
Thank you, Abhishek. Moving on to Harsh. Harsh, what are the two key areas, focus areas that are exciting you most?
So I think we focus a lot on emerging technologies, but I think more than emerging technologies, the free market is very exciting, you know. So I'm still, I think, very much hopeful of seeing a day when retail electricity markets, kerosene content, what we have talked about in amendment of Electricity Act, you know, it gets implemented. Because I think if that happens, then, you know, it just opens kind of open market for many things, you know. And I think it's time when, you know, we are having a lot of infrastructure in terms of, you know, the UPI payments. We are able to kind of use electric charger, you know, for scooters and cars just by doing a payment now. So I think these kind of things enables the meters infrastructure as well, you know. And then...
so there's a huge amount of convergence, you're saying, IT-driven, payments-driven,
yes.
and electricity,
Yeah.
mobility, all of that is convergent.
Exactly. And even now, like we are doing direct benefit transfers, you know, to people across the country for gases, for electricity. For electricity, we are not doing it, but it can be done. And that can take away us from the cross-subsidization, which is kind of been talking for ages, you know, like decades. So I think these are the kind of things I'm still hopeful that we'll do sooner than later. And that will liberate a lot of inefficiencies in the ecosystem. Yeah.
Thank you, Harsh. Moving on to you, Sunil. What are the top one or two things that are exciting you? What do you think is the future of the market now?
One is the green tariffs, which customers are, you know, many states have come out with. So now it is not entirely dependent on the Discom, how much green energy it can absorb and deliver. Now customers are coming and demanding or themselves declaring that they will be net zero or decarbonize their systems by say 2040 or 2047. So green tariffs is a one enabling development which is really going to push Discoms in absorbing and delivering that clean energy. And thanks to this storage and solar and wind systems, which are going to enable this maximum energy transition.
But are consumers ready to pay green tariffs? I remember when there was a differential of 1 rupee or 2 rupees that certain state electricity regulatory commissions were charging 5-6 years back. There were no takers for it for quite a few years. So how do you think we can
Yes, if you want to decarbonize, if customers are willing, then there is no harm in case you want. But of course, there is a cost to deliver that sort of energy to, with same conditions. So there is no harm in if there is a slight premium. Of course, it should be, normally it should be at the same rate. But in case you have to absorb more and more energy and deliver it, so green tariffs is one good development which would push Discoms to in this direction. Other is the e-mobility thing that is happening, because a lot of green energy would be utilized in decarbonizing your transportation sector. So why I'm talking about e-mobility is because everything would be connected to Discom grids, and Discoms will have a key role in decarbonization and energy transition. So if you go forward, Discoms would be the key enabler in bringing this and utilizing this green energy. And recent trend and guideline and some discussions, I think we are taking some steps towards, putting RE-based EV charging stations so that you can minimize your tailpipe emissions. So Discom playing a good role in terms of delivering this clean energy for mobility space, also in energy efficiency. A lot of cook stove and a lot of energy efficient equipments are going to enter kitchens. So Discom would be the key energy provider going forward, and will play a major role and critical role, so nobody can discount that. So of course we have a close connect with customers, so in case governments and authorities want to make it really happen, so they have to really work closely with Discoms in coming out with enabling framework. So green tariffs and e-mobility, which will quickly decarbonize the whole setup. These are two things that are happening.
Thank you, Sunil. We have just about enough time for one or two quick questions. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to, introduce yourself quickly. We're out of time. So Vimi said, okay, that's it. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for, sitting through with this. And thank you, speakers. It's wonderful having you here. Thank you, Vimi. Thank you, Shivani and the organizers. We look forward to other sessions in the day. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so very much.